The night was supposed to be ordinary, a casual conversation between friends during a live event celebrating the legacy of Outlander. But for those who truly know the dynamics between Sam Heughan and Caitríona Balfe, nothing about that night would ever be ordinary again. Within minutes, one unexpected remark from Sam sent the entire fandom into chaos and fueled headlines around the world. It began innocently enough. Sam was asked about how Outlander had changed his life, and his tone softened as he began to speak, not about fame, but about connection. "You meet someone," he said, "and suddenly, your whole world shifts." The audience laughed, thinking he meant his character Jamie Fraser. But then he added, almost under his breath, "Some bonds go beyond the screen." That one sentence, barely audible, barely emphasized, was enough to light a fire across social media. Fans clipped the moment, slowed it down, analyzed every word. Some claimed it was a harmless comment. Others were convinced Sam had just confessed to something much deeper. The narrative shifted within hours. Did Sam just expose the truth about his feelings for Caitríona Balfe, now a married woman? Caitríona's marriage to Tony McGill had always seemed steady and private, untouched by the gossip that usually surrounds celebrities. But as Sam's words circulated, old interviews resurfaced, filled with their laughter, their glances, the kind of chemistry that never truly fades. "It's just acting," they had always said. Yet to many, the line between acting and reality suddenly felt thinner than ever. The tabloids wasted no time. "Heughan's confession sparks marriage trouble," one headline read. Another screamed, "Balfe's husband furious after Sam's shocking slip." Reporters began dissecting every public appearance. Why hadn't Caitríona mentioned Tony recently? Why had Sam avoided red carpets for months? In the silence, speculation grew louder. Behind the cameras, sources close to the production whispered about tension. One insider claimed that Sam had been emotionally distant during recent shoots, while Caitríona appeared unusually guarded. Others dismissed the rumors, calling them typical fan fiction gone wild. Still, the damage was done. The illusion of perfect friendship, the one fans had cherished for years, was cracking. Those who knew Sam best said he'd always struggled with the pressure of fame. For years, people had shipped him and Caitríona relentlessly, blurring the lines between fiction and real life. He had laughed it off, always the gentleman, always respectful. But something had changed. Maybe he was tired of hiding how deeply connected they truly were, not romantically, perhaps, but spiritually, emotionally, in a way words couldn't explain. Caitríona, on the other hand, had built walls to protect her personal life. She had often spoken about the importance of privacy, of separating art from reality. Yet now, her private world was under siege. Tony McGill, her husband, had reportedly asked her to set the record straight, but silence was her weapon. Every time she avoided commenting, fans took it as confirmation. And Sam? He stayed quiet. No clarifying tweet, no interview correction. Just silence, and that silence screamed louder than any denial could. Some close friends hinted that he regretted how his words were taken out of context. Others believed he meant every syllable. Either way, the damage was irreversible. In the days that followed, the fandom split in two. Some defended Sam, saying he had simply spoken from the heart. Others accused him of disrespecting Caitríona's marriage. But beneath the noise, a darker truth lingered, one about fame, friendship, and the cost of authenticity in a world that thrives on illusion. When Sam was spotted leaving a private event alone, head down, the cameras caught what seemed like exhaustion on his face. "I never meant to hurt anyone," a friend quoted him as saying. But the world wasn't listening to apologies, it was addicted to scandal. And so the story grew. What began as one offhand remark had turned into a full-blown controversy threatening to reshape how people saw both Sam and Caitríona forever. The truth, whatever it was, had escaped, and there was no putting it back. But behind the flashing lights and gossip columns, one question lingered quietly. Did Sam finally reveal the truth, or was it the world that forced him to? In the days that followed, silence became a language of its own. Neither Sam Heughan nor Caitríona Balfe addressed the rumors directly, but their absence from the public eye only deepened the mystery. The internet had already chosen sides. Hashtags like #TeamSam and #ProtectCaitríona trended simultaneously. What had once been a celebrated friendship was now dissected into screenshots, fan theories, and endless debates. It was no longer about one careless sentence. It was about everything that came before it. The years of interviews filled with knowing smiles. The candid behind-the-scenes footage where they seemed to forget the cameras were even there. Fans began rewatching old Outlander clips, searching for clues they might have missed. A glance here, a touch there, a pause that suddenly felt loaded with meaning. Behind the scenes, insiders described a growing tension that even the crew couldn't ignore. "You could feel it," one staff member said. "They were professional, but the energy between them had changed. They didn't joke around the same way. There was a distance." Whether that distance was created by guilt, pressure, or heartbreak, no one knew for sure. For Caitríona, the situation became unbearable. Her marriage, once private and quiet, was now under a spotlight she never wanted. Tony McGill, a man who had always preferred staying out of fame's reach, suddenly found himself in tabloid headlines. "Tony feels betrayed," one gossip column wrote. Another claimed he'd moved out temporarily, though no one could confirm it. Caitríona's representatives denied the story, but the denial came too late. The damage was already done. Sam, meanwhile, retreated. He cancelled 2 promotional appearances, citing exhaustion. For someone known for his charisma and openness with fans, his disappearance was alarming. Those close to him said he was struggling, not with fame, but with guilt. "He's always been careful with his words," a longtime friend explained. "But this time, it slipped. And he's been torturing himself ever since." There was one interview, recorded before the controversy but released after, where Sam's tone hinted at a deeper truth. "We give so much of ourselves to these roles," he said quietly. "Sometimes, it's hard to know where the character ends and you begin." Viewers replayed that clip endlessly, connecting it to everything that followed. It felt like a confession, not of love, perhaps, but of emotional entanglement too deep to ignore. As the weeks passed, fans began to notice subtle shifts. Caitríona posted a photo from set with a cryptic caption, "The lines between truth and fiction are thinner than they seem." Some took it as a poetic nod to her work. Others saw it as a message meant for Sam. Within hours, thousands of comments flooded in, dissecting every word, every emoji. Still, amid the chaos, a few people close to both actors insisted the story had been blown out of proportion. "They care about each other deeply," said a mutual friend. "But it's not scandal, it's connection. Years of working together, trusting each other in ways most people never will." People mistake that intimacy for something else. Yet even those words couldn't stop the machine of public curiosity. Every silence was a statement, every smile a hint, every gesture a clue. And while Caitríona tried to protect her family, Sam wrestled with the weight of what he'd unleashed. Then, unexpectedly, Sam resurfaced, on stage at a charity gala in London. Dressed in black, he seemed subdued but determined. During his speech, he spoke about truth and vulnerability, about the difficulty of being misunderstood in a world that demands perfection. "Sometimes," he said, his voice steady, "the truth isn't what people think it is. Sometimes it's what we carry quietly, hoping it doesn't break us." The audience fell silent. There were no direct mentions of Caitríona or the scandal, but the emotion in his voice was undeniable. It wasn't the tone of a man hiding. It was the tone of someone finally accepting the cost of being honest. After the event, Caitríona quietly liked a fan post that shared Sam's speech with the caption, "Real strength is saying less, but meaning more." It was the first subtle sign that perhaps forgiveness, or at least understanding, had begun. By the time filming for the next season resumed, the world had already moved on to new headlines, new scandals. But for those who watched closely, something between Sam and Caitríona had shifted permanently. The laughter returned, but it was softer. The glances remained, but they carried a weight only 2 people could truly understand. Maybe Sam hadn't intended to expose any truth that night. Maybe the real truth was that some connections, no matter how complicated, never truly fade. They just learn to survive in silence. And as cameras rolled again, fans couldn't help but wonder. Were Sam and Caitríona acting as Jamie and Claire? Or were they simply being themselves? In a story far more real than anyone could imagine?